Just doing a little bit of content today. Was going to shoot some outdoor video on frost seeding out on the Giro farm yesterday, and we ended up getting busy farming, cutting wood and doing little projects. And so I didn't get the chance to do out in the field content, and hopefully I'll get an opportunity to do that in the next few days. But as we're always out in nature and the environment, talking to a family member as far as planning ahead. And that's what I want to touch base on. When I grew up on the Giro farm, we had pretty typical weather patterns. And it wasn't just where I was at in a lot of areas of the US. Things have shifted. Things are more in extreme. That's the conversation I had. The rains are heavier. The drought periods are more extended. The seasons have shifted. The planting dates, as a result, need to be taken into consideration. Those that follow me know that I am always talking about weatherproofing your plots. And there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Genetics um, is hugely important. Looking at different genetics, I talk about that a lot. There's new genetics I'm always testing. And I'm proud to say I'm the guy that probably has most of the new stuff before anybody else. But here's my word of caution I tell people, especially those of you guys that are watching now that you don't really know me. Anybody can throw new genetics out there in front of people. But when I test on all the research properties that I have, we're always looking for what's wrong with these forages. That's my background as a farmer. That's my background as a ruminant nutrition consultant. Um, because it's all about predictability. Yes, that's how genetics is chosen. I mean, it's you could have great genetics for 1 year, 2 years, and but you need to have it consistent. I mean, you don't always have to have the highest yielding genetics, but you have to have those kind of genetics that you can put across the different environments, and and we don't want to have the lows too low, and so that's a little food for thought. So this time of year, as I was out in the environment, and I've talked to some people about this, going back in the early 90s when I was involved in the management intensive grazing movement, we typically frost seed a little earlier with a lot of my hardcore customers. No matter how thick your pastures were, we always put seed out, new seed, and there's different reasons for it. Most of you guys don't think about different genetics and how long they last. How long ladinos last. They tend to last longer. The medium red clovers are 2 to 3 years, typically, depending on the genetics. There's a lot of new annual clovers that we have putting out there. And so there's a lot of factors that come into play as far as like for frost seeding. So I was going to frost seed yesterday, and we got other things are more important. So this next weekend, my son and I will be doing a lot more frost seeding. Generally, set a great time is like about February 15th of March 15th in the upper Midwest. But again, we're going to be doing some different experiments this year. And again, the weather is huge. And the reason why I want people to throttle up the frost seeding earlier is we don't have the cold colds like we used to have, and we don't have the periods of time where we have much snow on the ground. We've had very little snow on the ground, and so we don't have the swings, that you need to have the incorporation of the seed in the ground through frost seeding. So as a result, I think I want people to get some of that, even if you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Even if you just do it on part of your acreage or half your acres, you're going to frost seed, get it out there here late January. And again, if you have 6, 8, 10 inches of snow, not a great idea. But like right now on the Geo farm, we just have a dusting. And so we were supposed to have a little bit more coming in yesterday. We didn't get as much as was predicted. So then again, maybe not terrible. I really love getting a little bit of snow on top of the ground when you frost. You get that covered up, get it packed down. Um, and so if you got like an inch or 2 or 3 inch snow coming in, great time to frost seed, get that seed on the ground, and then get some of that snow on top. How late is too late? Well, once you get back, you get beyond March 15th, it probably is more overseeding than frost seeding. In some areas in the transition zones, the key thing is the amount of periods, the duration of freezing and thawing. And I think that's part of the problem that a lot of guys have had lately is we haven't had enough days above freezing and then dropping, down in the 20 22 degree period of time. Um, we haven't had like the weather patterns that we used to have, and we haven't had the snows that we used to have. And so again, some people will say to me, well, like, can I do chicory, annual clovers? What can you frost seed? And so again, most forages you can frost seed, but generally I've said in the past that alfalfas and your soft seeded seeds, like your chicories and that, we would tend to want to get them out there a little bit later. I would always be doing that in early March to mid March versus like your ladinos, medium red clovers, owl sykes, and that you could get away with it earlier. And so here's like something I'll throw out there on occasions where some guys are all worried about frost seeding. I used to have way, way, way back in the day, there was even guys that were feeding through the cattle. And there wasn't a lot of guys, but I had customers that actually did this, that actually fed the clovers through the cattle. And then when they were out there and they ran them out in the pasture, and these guys that were overwintering too, um, they were redepositing some of those clovers scattered around their paddocks. And so again, I'm not recommending to feed through clovers there, but I've also had guys at that period of time that even spread some seed and put it in the manure spreader. And when they're going across some of these areas on their farm, they were actually spreading, you know, um, the seed that was in the manure. And so it's kind of like I have a customer that does a lot of cover crops that's doing air seeding, where they put down about 10,000 gallons of liquid and then they're dropping seed right in the manure. So again, the reason I bring up some of that is there's a lot of different ways. I mean, drone seeding, drones are becoming more commonly used, and I actually sell a little bit of seed to some drone guys. And so again, that is even an option too in some areas that maybe are not as easily accessible, and so on and so forth. So plan ahead on the frost seedings. If anybody ever has any questions, they can always reach out to me. And again, there's so many different varieties of ladinos and medium red clovers, not so much on the L sykes. And yeah, there's the old genetic annuals. There's the new, more cold tolerant annual clovers that are out there. Um, but again, it's the right place, the right time, the right rate, the right way. So it isn't just the timing of the season. It's like, well, what is the soil you're putting it on? Is it wet? Is it dry? Is it sloped? And so there's all those factors that come into play. And that's why I strongly suggest to people, instead of just going and buying a bag, let's sit down and get educated and think about like what is out there now, what is our goals, when do I want our deer to be there, and then lastly, like how am I going to make my plots more weatherproof in 2025? I'll be educating in way more detail on that moving forward. That's my expertise. I've been doing this since 1991, and that's my background, managed intensive grazing. And so, not many people are of that mindset, but we need to be. Those very concepts are the very concepts that are going to help us handle these wide weather fluctuations that we've been experiencing, that I would expect that we're going to see moving forward. And so the biodiversity plots and forages are what we really need to start focusing on. And so there's some synergistic effects, a feng shui kind of thing, as far as, having enough diversity even on your perennial plots. John O'Brien, talking points, food for thought with frost seeding and planning ahead.